ETFs having quite a year here. Global assets in ETFs reached a record $12.4 trillion at the end of the third quarter, according to Morningstar. And taking a look, 65% of investors planning to increase their ETF investments in the next 5 years, according to a Charles Schwab report. To discuss how ETFs might hedge against future uncertainty, we have David Botset, who is the Schwab Asset Management, Head of Innovation and Stewardship. Great to have you here in studio with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's dive into this a little bit. The inflows into ETFs over the course of this year. I mean, did we see this coming at all?
What we're seeing from ETF investors is they are very confident in the decisions that they make. And I think that is driving much of the inflows we're seeing this year.
And so where are some of the hot sectors or themes that are really playing out well among ETFs?
Yeah. Well, I think we're seeing, number one, a repositioning in fixed income, right? As we've seen the Fed start to think about bringing interest rates down, they've come down a half a point already. Investors have been largely in the short end of the curve. They're rethinking that position as they're expecting the shape of the yield curve to reposition over the course of the next year.
And so how does that help also stave off risks of volatility impacting a person's portfolio?
Yeah, so I think they're looking at that because they're saying, well, I may be overweight in my equity portion of my portfolio because we've had a very significant bull run in equities. And we're starting to see that now offset with the increase in the fixed income allocation.
And so with all of this considered, I mean, the investment strategy that we've seen, typically people will look at ETFs to have a more, not just diversified portfolio, but one that can kind of hedge risk and mitigate risk as well.
They are looking at it that way, but they're also looking at ETFs as a way to bring the cost of investing down. When we did our survey, this is the 11th year we've been doing an ETF investor survey. The number one driver of decisions in selecting ETFs is about the cost. So I think investors are looking at not only how they diversify their portfolio, but how do I bring down the cost of investing? Okay,
and so how is this also kind of setting up the duration that people are looking at holding on to some of these investments as well?
I think what we see is ETF investors tend to stick with their investment strategy. What we've seen is most of them have kind of a 60-40 equity to fixed income allocation. And over time, regardless of what they're seeing, geopolitical issues, wars, inflation, they tend to hold steady to what that allocation is.
What is the demographic kind of breakdown that you're seeing among ETFs and how they're being added into portfolios right now?
So clearly the affinity for ETFs crosses age range, but millennials in particular have shown a higher propensity to use ETFs. I think you think of the older generation, they grew up with mutual funds. That's kind of where they started investing. The younger generation clearly has shown a greater affinity for ETFs.
Why do you think that is?
I think a couple of things. One is the cost. The other part is about personalization and access. ETFs have made it much easier to access the investing market.
Certainly. And then just lastly here, as you think about some of the ETFs that have certainly made a splash over the past year, there's so much focus over crypto ETFs. How does that kind of either take some of the juice away from other elements, other areas of the market where ETFs had been strong coming into the start of some of the SEC greenlighting some of the crypto ETFs as well?
Yeah. So I think it's all about access. ETFs provided access to equities 30 years ago, and they're doing that with crypto. It's not necessarily pulling away from fixed income or equity allocations, it's just making it more accessible.
All right, David Botset, who is the Schwab Asset Management Head of Innovation and Stewardship, joining us here in studio. David, great to see you.
Thank you.